sure I have any left, but that's okay. I want to welcome everybody and call the meeting of the June 15th Board of Commissioners Finance Committee to order. Would you please call the roll?
Call the roll.
Commissioners Cavell? Colwell?
Here.
McGillivray?
Here.
Powell? Here. Charles?
Present.
Long?
Here.
Moss?
Present.
Markham?
Here.
I'm sure you have a quorum.
Great, thank you.
I'm here. Gershenson's here.
Gershenson's
I'm
here.
sorry, Commissioner Gershenson.
I think Woodward's here.
And Woodward's here
Commissioner
too.
Woodward and
Ex officio.
ex
What do we call
officio
them?
members.
Big shots. That's who they are. There are big shots. All right, let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next up, we have approval of the minutes from May 18th. Motion from Commissioner Moss, supported by Commissioner McGillivray. All in favor of approving the minutes from May 18th, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Minutes have been approved. Next up, we have approval of the agenda for today. Motion from Commissioner Moss, supported by Commissioner Kowal. Any comments or changes to the agenda? All in favor of the agenda for today, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Agenda is approved. I will make a comment at this point. We're going to do voice votes today because we're having trouble with the electronic voting system. So we will be doing a roll call kind of vote on each of the items. Okay. Next up, we have public comment. This is our first public comment. It's open to anyone who wishes to speak on any item on today's agenda. It's open at this time. Is there anyone who wishes to address us in public comment? Seeing no one, I will close public comment and we will move on to communications. I need a motion to receive and file. Moved by Commissioner Powell, supported by Commissioner Moss. Any comments? Let's call the roll then.
You want to do a voice vote on communications?
Can we do a voice vote on all of them at once? Yeah. Okay, let's do a voice vote. All in favor of receiving and filing the communications, say aye. 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 Opposed, say nay. Communications have been approved. Okay. Next up, we have item 8, our department recommendations. Item 8A is equalization resolution for assessing contracts for 2022-2023. And before us, we have Kyle Jen, and I need a motion from Commissioner Gershenson, supported by Commissioner Powell. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I almost said good morning. I'm joined here by Terry Schultz, who's one of our chiefs over in the Equalization Division, and can speak to any specific questions. So just for background here, for those who aren't familiar, the county provides assessing services for 32 of the cities and townships within the county. On a contract basis. Historically, those contracts have run on a 3-year cycle. If you go to page 147 in your PDF, there's kind of a handy map in terms of which localities have chosen to enter into contracts with the county to perform those services. It's really kind of the four corners of the county, plus Pontiac and Orchard Lake in the middle, is the way I think about it. These contracts are slated to expire at the end of this month. As we discussed this, within the administration, and then had conversations with Chairman Woodward and Chair Markham. As you're aware, we've had a vacancy in the equalization director position for a number of months. So that's one factor. And the second factor is that as we've done a high-level assessment, we don't think that the current rates, are appropriately uniform across the localities, and B, are not fully capturing the costs to the county of performing those services. So what we have proposed to the localities and are proposing to all of you is a 1-year extension or renewal of the existing contracts with an inflationary increase of 4% in the current rates. That gives us time to get the new equalization director on board, to assess services, to meet with each of the localities and get their feedback on services, and also provides time to build a plan to construct a new rate structure that's more appropriate for the costs that the county incurs in performing these services. So again, it's a 4% increase in the current rates that each locality is paying. I think there's a schedule of what those rates would be. The one exception is for Orchard Lake, which is paying a much higher rate than all of the other localities. So we would freeze them where they are for a year, and then come back to you prior to the expiration of the 1 year with a proposal for new 3-year contracts. Anything to add to that, Terry?
No, I think you pretty much covered it.
Okay, so we're happy to respond to any questions you may have.
Okay, I'll open it up to the board at this time. Anybody have any questions? Commissioner Moss, followed by Commissioner Woodward.
Yeah, it's a 4% inflationary increase. I believe inflation right now is at 8.5, maybe even a little higher.
Correct. So we took a look at it. We think a reasonable number from both the county perspective and the perspective of the localities is that last year, the fiscal year inflation number that was used for Proposal A purposes was 3.3%. Almost all our locales up into the 4 to 5% range. So I wouldn't say it's super scientific, but we rounded the 3.3% up to 4.
Okay, we'll be looking forward to see how this inflation increase and the amount of revenue we derive combines with reality. Thank you.
Commissioner Woodward, followed by Commissioner Powell.
Thank you. To that point, our cost principally is in labor, right? It's the labor, it's the assessors that work with the local communities to do the assessment of residential and commercial, or is it for some residential, commercial for others?
It's all categories for each locality that contracts with us.
So I'm very supportive, and Mr. Jen, making sure that all of our indirect costs being captured in the future, taking a little bit of time to get that right. I feel comfortable with the 4% increase. At least in terms from a labor cost, that's in line with some of our across the board wage increases, and then whatever we do in this next budget would definitely get captured in whatever those next 3-year contracts are going forward.
Commissioner Powell.
Who controls the decision on the actual rates? Is it the city municipalities, or is the whole process? And I'm just trying to understand how we came to these numbers.
Well, these numbers are a function of sort of a historical process in terms of what previous versions of this board and previous administrations have determined. It's a little bit haphazard. You can see that the rates are not necessarily uniform. I think in some cases there are probably explainable reasons. In other cases they're not, and that's why we'd like to take the next year to build something that I think is defensible and fair to both the county and to these localities going forward.
Okay, yeah, because I know with the city, Pontiac, there's starting to be some discussion about that. So I know they probably for clarity because it's a new council coming in, but
Sure.
they're understanding too on process. So that's why I was asking.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Commissioner Woodward.
Just clarification. I think at least it has been explained in the past that the economies of scale about having an entire team and the expertise spread among that team generally results in a cheaper rate than if you go out on your own.
Okay.
There might be some considerations, based on limited parcels or whatever, that would, shape that, but there has been value that all the communities that have been participating, I think it makes even more sense, frankly, because then at least there's like a similar standard being applied around the entire county versus having individual communities doing their own thing to get a more robust and accurate picture. And that's important for all of us from a budget planning perspective. So, but there's a lot of work that has to go into. I mean, how do you create what is the fair rate, and then as much as possible, how is that fairly distributed across all the communities that use it?
All right.
So I think taking a year makes a lot of sense.
Anybody else? Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's call the roll.
Cavell?
Yes.
Colwell? Yes. McGillivray?
Yes.
Howell?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
Long?
Yes.
Moss?
Yes.
Gershenson?
Yes.
Woodward?
Yes.
Markham?
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 10 yeas, 0 nays.
Wow. Big committee today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Next up, we have item 8B with the State Land Bank Authority to create an Oakland County Land Bank Authority. I need a motion. Commissioner Cavell, supported by Commissioner Gershenson. We welcome our treasurer, Mr. Wittenberg, and his staff.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us here, and we're really excited to talk about this agenda item in front of you now. Jody Weissler-Defoe, Chief Deputy, is joining me. Jill Robinson, who is a Deputy Treasurer and also our Property Specialist. She's got that great title. Jody Hall from Corporation Counsel is here as well to help out. And then at some point on video behind us, Emily Dorr, the Executive Director of the State Land Bank Authority, as well as Patrick Ennis, the General Counsel of the State Land Bank Authority, excuse me, are joining us as well. So what's in front of you? We are seeking your approval to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the State Land Bank Authority to create the Oakland County Land Bank Authority. Land banks are an economic development tool that we would like to add to our existing toolbox. They were created as a direct response to property vacancies, abandonment, and to strategically acquire property and convert liabilities into assets. Land banks can acquire title to properties, and most commonly that is through the tax foreclosure process. They can eliminate the legal and financial barriers through expedited quiet title and transfer the properties to new responsible owners, which is important, in a manner consistent with community-based plans to get them back on the tax roll. Most land banks hold and maintain land temporarily until a responsible owner is identified. Land banks also have the ability to capture 50% of the taxes for 5 years once a property is placed back on the tax rolls when it's sold, and that's referred to as the 550 tax capture. Specifically here in Oakland County, recently the State Land Bank Authority was the partnering land bank for a Commerce Township housing development. By moving the property into the land bank, the property was automatically eligible for brownfield redevelopment funds, which were necessary for the financing of infrastructure, including roads and utilities. And the overall tax capture for that project is $2.5 million over that 5-year period. Currently, within our office, we already operate, I always refer to it as a quasi, it's a land bank, but without the ability to utilize the tools that I was just mentioning. We are not asking, which is also another really important thing we want to emphasize, we are not asking for any additional funding and believe we can operate using the current budget that we have within our office. And through the Treasurer's Office Surplus Property Program, so that is properties that don't sell at the land sale, we maintain all the properties. And we simultaneously work to find responsible owners to develop or utilize the property and make sure that it aligns with our community goals. And that's usually something with either housing, public spaces, side lots, or other creative uses that make places here in Oakland County more livable for our residents, and importantly is to bring them back on the tax roll. So that's kind of the gist of why we're here today. I also want to pass it over to Emily if she's on camera, and if not, maybe she can join. She is with the State Land Bank, and we have been working for quite some time with the State Land Bank, their attorney, with our corporation counsel to put together this agreement that's in front of you. So I don't know if Emily is here to.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me?
We got you. Thanks, Emily.
Yes, thank you, welcome.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate being here. I appreciate all of you commissioners taking your time today on this, and thank you, County Treasurer Wittenberg. I am Emily Dorr, Executive Director of the State Land Bank, and my General Counsel, Patrick Ennis, is also on this call, and thank you, Patrick. Just wanted to very briefly say there are 46 county land banks in the state of Michigan, and every county land bank is different. And I start with that to say that we have a very large, and then the city of Detroit has its own land bank as well. And so between the city of Detroit Land Bank, which we all know is very different than the Marquette County Land Bank up in the Upper Peninsula, or Alger County in the Upper Peninsula, or Benzie County, just south of Traverse City. And we can go all across the state. Most of our county land banks actually are more rural. However, some are urban, including Genesee County, Ingham County, Calhoun, Bay County, Saginaw County, Wayne County, obviously. So I say that to mention that the potential Oakland County Land Bank will look different than any other one. It's not something that is going to automatically have to be a certain thing or fit in a certain set of assumptions. It is a toolbox for what your local officials want, what you as your the local experts and community impact being what it will be, as well as the real estate market and all of those things together. Land banking is a toolbox that you can utilize for those projects. And the other piece of having your own county land bank, it's not approved yet, but I did want to mention that there is a blight elimination general fund ask in the amount of $50 million that the Michigan Association of Land Banks has been advocating for. That's not something that we have been pushing at the state level, but the Michigan Association of Land Banks is the lead. And I say that it did move through the Senate. It was Senate Bill 834, and now is in the House. And if that does get approved, there will be direct grant funds to all existing county land banks that come out of that for operating, as well as the opportunity to apply for additional grant funds for blight elimination. So that'd be specifically demolition of both commercial and residential properties. So it's not decided yet, but that is an opportunity that is on the horizon. And so this is very good timing. And I'm here to answer any other questions. And again, Patrick Ennis on this call can also answer questions. And thank you all for your time.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Emily. Thank you.
I will open it up to the commission at this time. Commissioner Long, sorry about that.
No, you know me. That's okay.
You're my favorite.
It's like, that's get yourself in trouble. Well, that's funny because that's the same, like when you walk around and you see constituents in your district, you say, you're my favorite constituent, right? Be careful who you say it to and who's around listening.
I know. So I know you said there's no budget amendment required, but will there be a separate department how will this run, this land bank? I mean, will there be additional staff, but you guys can cover it, or how does it run?
So, I mean, that we're putting together the agreement here within our office. Jill can probably speak a little more about this, but again, she's in essence running kind of a land bank within our office. Now, what'll happen is this will have a board, and that's within the framework that you see here. The board makeup of 5 members, and one is the treasurer, and this is standard across land banks in the state. As the treasurer sits on it, the executive or their designee, and then there's 3 other appointments to the board. One is representing townships, one is representing cities, and then one is a general citizen, public member. So that's the board. Our intention is to have this be a working board. We have requirements in there that they have some background in either housing, economic development, planning, real estate. Our goal is to have a board that is really kind of doing the work, and then having a team behind the scenes within our office. So Jill would be the lead, and then we have team members in the treasurer's office. And that's to start, existing team members.
So with those board members, they're gonna be doing a bulk of the work. Will they have a salary or a stipend for their meetings, or what are our plans for that? Just great citizens?
Well, they're not, they're open meetings, this is
Right.
everything, yeah, but it's
Right.
people that are willing,
That
that
are
wanna be.
willing to do it, okay.
Yeah, and again, this isn't unique just to us on this side of it, right? This is going on in counties around the state, and you have people that really want to see their communities thrive, and that's why getting people who are, like some of the people, someone represents townships, right? So it could be someone who serves within a township, and then someone serves within a city. They want to see their communities, right? They take these blighted parcels or take things that have just been sitting there for some time, and want to see them back on the tax rolls and want to see something productive.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't know if Jill, do you want to add anything?
No, I was just going to say, right now, what I do is operate like a land bank. So we have tax foreclosures, things don't sell at the tax sales, they become surplus property, which is in essence a land bank without the tools. So I maintain them, we work with a maintenance company, contractor that mows the lawns, picks up illegal dumping, work very closely with the cities where our properties are, Pontiac, Hazel Park, Madison Heights, couple out in the northern county, but it would operate the same. There's other opportunities, I think, along the way, like the Commerce Township one, where somebody could ask, will you take this property so we can have the benefit of the brownfield redevelopment funds? And we can do that. And when we do that, we build into an agreement, you're responsible for all the maintenance on this while we hold it. If that's for a month or 2 months or a day, I don't know. But there's ways to create an agreement that other people are responsible for maintenance on large projects if they want to become eligible for brownfield redevelopment funds. So I don't see much changing. I think we have some underutilized staff members right now that are looking for more exciting things to do. And I think we can offer that. It's a cool program, right? There's a lot of potential of fun projects and economic development, and we have a really robust Growing Pontiac, which is a gardening program in the city of Pontiac. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to expand those programs with who we have right now.
Thank you.
And just to go back on that one question, and thank you, Jody Hall, and it's in here specifically that no compensation
Okay.
for,
Okay,
yeah,
so that's for board members.
for board members.
All of them.
Our staff, yes, that's for the board members, yep, that's for
board
everyone.
members.
Yep,
Okay,
yep,
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I have Commissioner Powell, followed by Commissioner Moss.
Do y'all know the number potentially of if we, everything go through, where we at with properties? And then the ones the state own, will that shift to you all? Like, is that how that work, that then you all take over ones by the state, now that we have our own? So that's that question. And then, the board. Be it that leadership decide, commissioner representation needs to be on that. Is that an option? Like, does the board, because she said it's depending on what county, every county is different. So be it if we want it, our leadership decides. We may want a commissioner on that. Is that optional, or is that the standard set of how the boards is to be?
So I'll work backwards and hopefully I remember everything. The board, the board does not have to be exactly how it is.
Okay.
We can actually have a conversation about that, but our intention obviously is to have a working board. This isn't like just a title and people just sit on a board. This is, right? So we want to make sure, and then also people that have expertise that will, that they can bring to this board. So I think that's really important. So, if that's part of the conversation that you all want to have, we are obviously absolutely happy to entertain that and discuss that.
Okay.
So no, that is not a requirement. I think, with the state land bank, I think it gives us more flexibility to be able to work with, if we have a land bank here versus just running it out of our office, it gives us more flexibility to work along with the state land bank. And Emily can probably answer that question.
As we all know, the state land bank owns properties prior to the county kind of operating the way we do now with our surplus property, we could take them on. We don't have to. We could
Okay.
take a part of them. We can, we have the ability to kind of be flexible and take what we need, look at projects that are coming, and kind of understand like what the whole view is as to whether or not we need everything the state land bank owns right now. Some of it in some communities, not in all. We have
That's all.
that flexibility that we
And-
can take them.
Yeah, and then what is the number right now? For how many properties, I guess, guesstimation of what?
No, exactly. We have 461, 424 in Pontiac.
Wait, you said total, how many?
461.
And how many in Pontiac?
424.
That is-
However, let me say, so what also happens with these properties is we end up getting landlocked properties. So I think out of those, there's 40 that are landlocked mid-block. Nobody can use them. They're using them as backyards already, but nobody wants to buy them to pay taxes on them. They already have them. Alleys that have been deleted. Waterford has a bunch of underwater properties or swamp properties. Nobody can do anything with those. So we work with those municipalities and say, can you remove them from tax rolls? No, we can't. So we keep them. We don't need to do anything with them. We don't maintain them because you can't. So there's, in that, it sounds like a big number. In that, there's probably 100 that are not usable.
Okay.
So that's a pretty low number right now. And a lot of them, so back to taking what the state land bank owns right now, I think we'd look at a map and see how we can assemble larger buildable lots, especially in Pontiac. We have a lot of housing developers really interested right now. We're working with a couple right now, so it'd be nice to get some wider than 40-foot lots to do a bigger house, or have a driveway, or a garage, or whatever. So there's a lot you can do.
And I think, and it gives us more tools, right? The tools, that's what we are really harping on here, and the collaboration with the state land bank and the local communities, and obviously, hopefully, the county land bank, right? And making sure we're communicating so that we can figure out, are there some that we should combine, right, for a development? I think it makes it easier, and we're a little more nimble when it comes to that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And Emily, I don't know if you want to add anything else?
Do you know the number? Does she know the number of how many is in Oakland County?
Emily, the question was if you know how many the state land bank has in Oakland County.
Yes, our number is around 160 parcels that we own in Pontiac.
Is that Oakland County, or are they just all in Pontiac?
Oh, sorry, that, I thought you were asking specific to Pontiac. Those are all in, those are in the city limits of Pontiac.
Okay, but overall with Oakland County, do you know that number?
We do not own other properties at this time that I'm aware of in Oakland County.
Okay, thank you.
Obviously, Commissioner Powell represents Pontiac, Emily, just FYI.
I think Commissioner Powell's going to become a land developer.
I think so.
Lord, jeez.
Opportunity.
Oh, no, I'm excited,
Yeah,
though.
totally.
I'm excited, so.
Okay, is that it, Commissioner
Yes,
Powell?
ma'am. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, you're fine. Commissioner Moss, followed by Commissioner Woodward.
Thank you. Excuse me. My problem, whenever I hear the word land bank, I start thinking back to the some urban policies from the city of Detroit in the late 70s and 80s, because I know about that, because I actually wrote columns about this back in one of my Detroit news columnist days, yeah. And that the way it was applied, once again, we're talking about urban policy of maybe 50 years ago, was catastrophic for neighborhoods in the city. And I think the philosophy was that we're going to assemble big parcels, and if there's a blighted parcel, that's okay. We'll see how many more we can get. And it proved to be like I said, just catastrophic. And I would just like to be sure that the policies being followed right now by this land bank that is authority that is not going to repeat those historical mistakes. And I think a lot of them was the, excuse me, assembling large parcels, regardless of whether there are still people living in those parcels, and hanging on to them and not being able to maintain a large number. I think the number of properties in Pontiac should be not necessarily a red flag, but you keep an eye on that, because you guys have to cut the lawn and make sure that those properties are not a blight and dragging down the rest of the neighborhood. So I would like at least some recognition that this tool has in the past, now we're talking, once again, 50 years ago, been extremely destructive in urban areas, and to be aware of that. And also hanging on to those things and not letting them cycle through.
Yeah, and I think And then Jill has worked in this world for quite some time, so she's our internal expert here. But I would say that, without question, is the exception and not the norm, right? And I think Emily can probably speak about all the other land banks that operate and do a great job, and they are a economic development tool. They are helping out in the community. I mean, the plan, right, is we don't want to collect property just to collect property. We want property, we want to turn it back over and have it back on the tax rolls, but utilizing community input so that it is something that fits in that community. And I think having the board makeup that we have proposed helps to do that. I think with our partnership and our support that we get from the Land Bank Association and the State Land Bank, I think helps as well. So I think, and Jill, maybe you can speak more about that, his example specifically, or Emily. But the goal again is not for us just to collect property, because then it just costs us money to maintain it. The goal is to get it back to a useful form in the community.
Yeah, and I think that example that you're using, land banks haven't been around for that long. So I think 2003 is when land banks were formed in Michigan. So that was urban renewal policy, right? That was government policy that was created.
All I know is that the Young administration called it a land bank, and it was operated as a land bank, and we talked about it as a land bank, and so whatever.
Maybe Emily can speak to that.
Whatever
I don't
you
think
wanna
that
call it.
existed as a land bank, correct? Yeah.
So I know that land banking nationally started in the 50s in St. Louis. And so I'm not surprised to hear that Mayor Young in Detroit in the 70s would have used that phrase, because it was something that I'm sure probably the mayor of St. Louis, maybe he had heard it, made a reference. St. Louis's city land bank in the 50s and 60s was something that was stemmed out of legislative authority. However, the references that Mayor Young was making had no legislative tie. So I will reiterate what Jill said, that the Michigan Land Bank Act was written and approved in 2003. And so I appreciate, Commissioner, your comments, because I do think that there was a lot of divisive real estate policy tied to land and eminent domain and decisions made that shape our state today. So
That's
I appreciate your
that's
comment,
very
but
tactfully
I also-
put. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's my job. But yes, I do appreciate your comments, and so I will just reiterate that if that phrase was used, it was not used in an official way. It was used more colloquially, and hopefully we can change the opinion of land banking by providing examples of how it has been a very positive force in the state, across counties, across the state, over the last 20 years, and then specifically the tools that stem. Act 258 is the Land Bank Act of 2003. So Act 258 does have very specific things that, and just so you know, one of them is that we cannot use eminent domain. That is actually in Act 258. It actually says land banks can have nothing to do with eminent domain or casinos, just so you know.
Those two things.
Those are very good exceptions.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Is that it, Commissioner? Commissioner Woodward?
Can't have anything to do with casinos. I'm just
We lost the Woodbridge Tavern.
Emily, it's good to see you. You're my favorite executive director.
Hi, Dave.
It's been a while.
His favorite word.
No, I think this is for many of us here on this board. This has been a long time coming to bring this economic development tool into our county. I think it's great. And so my questions are more like kind of form and function. I'm going to come back to kind of the structure of the board and the conversations that the treasurer and I've had that I think also echo what some of Commissioner Powell did. But at first at the top, is there any fiscal exposure Oakland County has by having a land bank, or does any county have fiscal exposure with a land bank existing? I think that's this is probably the fundamental policy question for the creation of one.
Jody, do you want to?
I mean, are you asking legal exposure or fiscal?
Is there any like financial
I mean,
cost, like any loss of revenue? Could probably
It's a separate entity, right? So
So it's a completely
entity.
separate entity.
Yep.
Now, in the tax foreclosure process, where I mean, your office will take foreclosed properties, put them up for auction. The land bank could be an entity that is able to get these properties.
Correct.
Are they in a position to get it? I mean, first of the line, or do they have to bid a?
No,
I
they
mean-
actually have a right of refusal, just like the state, other communities,
Locals.
CBTs, and the county.
So
They're in
based on
line.
so
Yeah.
if
And that's
you're
in
so
line with
where-
the new process too, right? So,
Right.
I came to speak to all the commissioners
Right.
and caucuses, right? The process has changed with the updated, the
Right.
claims process, right?
So if you're, I mean, I'm in Royal Oak, there's a foreclosed property, Royal Oak gets first right of refusal to take it.
Actually, the state gets the first right, then actually the county land bank, then the city, then the county.
State, city,
The state, county land bank,
okay,
then the city, then the county.
got it.
County land bank used to be at the end, and with the changes with the claims, land bank's actually moved up to
Okay.
the front with the city.
And the way that they, land bank would take property was like whatever's owed on it, like
So
fees.
again, it depends on if there's a claim, then they have to pay 2 times the SEV, or like the market value, so that there's claims available for the person that lost the property. Otherwise, it's the minimum
Minimum
bid,
bid.
which is the delinquent taxes, interest, and fees.
Okay. Okay, so, so potentially though, I guess in that situation where the county would be, that the DTRF would potentially maybe lose some
Nope,
Or-
DTRF's always made whole, because that
because
minimum bid
it pays
comes
the
in.
taxes.
Yep, that's
So
right.
it basically
The local communities actually bear the brunt of that because they get charged back ultimately.
If a property doesn't sell.
If it doesn't
but
sell.
If we collect the taxes, then they're not charged back anything.
Correct.
got it, okay. So beyond that, there is no.
We're not adding new, there's
Yeah.
nothing,
And additional revenues are not being, diverted, that currently come into Oakland County.
Well, the 50% tax capture is taking 50% of the taxes from all the taxing authorities, and it's becoming revenue to the land bank. That's what the 50% tax capture is,
For the
for
5
5
years.
years.
But there's
Okay.
zero coming
Okay.
in.
Right, there's 0 coming in now, right? Because if the county continues to hold it, there's no tax revenue coming in. So that's the incentive to getting it back onto the tax roll, then it's kind of like a step up, right? So 50% goes to the land bank, 50% goes to all the taxing authorities for 5 years. And then that's where the land bank has revenue to purchase properties that make
Oh.
sense into the economic development plan. And then 100%, after 5
back
years,
on the
ends
tax.
up back 100% to all the taxing
Got it.
authorities.
Yeah, and these are properties that have, been neglected, so the
Correct.
tax.
They're challenged properties for
They're challenged
one
properties
reason or
already,
another.
so again, like
Correct.
the true exposure is limited. But I guess, I'm just thinking, worst case scenario, there's a lot of properties in there. I'm just trying to see, is there ever like a point that it reaches at a tipping point, it's gathering like all this property, and as a result, like less dollars coming in to support
Well,
core.
again, if they're
services?
challenged properties and they go through the tax foreclosure process, the tax revenue dried up completely, right? So we
Right.
need some tool to try to get them back onto the tax roll. That's the
And-
benefit.
and the land bank doesn't have to take every property. The land bank has the option to take the property, or I shouldn't say not take, but option to buy the property.
Is there an idea of like what, like in terms of total cash assets that this land, an Oakland County land bank, obviously we're a large county, so comparable to large counties, is there, over 5 years, 10 years, like is there like a threshold that we anticipated possibly
I think if we
growing
look
to?
historically back to what we have owned as the county treasurer, which is kind of what we call a quasi land bank, I think our highest
Property
1,500?
number? No. When I came
Okay.
in, there was about 2,800 properties.
2,800 properties that
Yeah.
we owned. And that, again, was at kind of right after the tip
Yeah.
and the peak of the recession, when people were walking away from properties across the county.
And that was funds that were incurred by the county because we were paying to maintain these properties
Right.
and fix up these properties. So this actually could hypothetically take
Take that burden.
Take that burden off the county.
Yeah, that's where I was
That's
going
the-
with the next step.
correct.
So there's
That's-
like a
that could take that burden.
Potential, a burden,
Correct.
hopefully we never ever experience such a thing again, but that's good. So is there ever any arrangements with the land bank that, I mean, so beyond the properties, and so you develop the properties, sell off the properties, potentially there's revenue that can be held by the authority to continue to do this or accelerate or, help support additional development. Is there any trigger that once, like, those funds grew to a certain point that the creating entity kind of shares in that prosperity?
I feel like that's an Emily question.
Yeah, I don't know that ansor.
Emily, what happens
My favorite
when-
director.
Like,
Is there ever,
what
a
happens?
scenario where again, a land bank, hugely successful, brings in revenue at a certain point that potentially can share with the host organization that created that in the first place?
I just want to make sure I understand when you say host organization.
Like Oakland County. So Oakland County creates land bank. This land bank's so incredibly successful, develops $100 million worth of cash capital assets outside its properties. Is there any scenario where a certain other land banks have a relationship with their respective county and sharing in that prosperity? Or do all those dollars just get used for the ongoing development?
Oh, I see. Well, so what we've seen normally is the treasurer is the chair of the board. So I guess I will say that across the state, I think in most counties, the chair of the county land bank board is the county treasurer. And so I suppose if there was such a surplus of funds that are not needed for continued development of other of future properties, then I think that would be a board decision and led by the county treasurer as the board. However, what we've seen frequently is that the bigger land banks themselves, they want to be building up those funds because it allows them to then really invest in public benefit projects. And I guess I come back to the reason land banks were created really is to get properties back on the tax roll, but also to be able to offer that public benefit. And so that's where if someone says, well, are you interfering with the private market? My response is no, because if the county land bank chooses to invest its money in workforce housing or affordable housing that requires subsidy, and that subsidy can frankly come from some of these revenues that are held by the county land bank because of some of its economic or financial success in other projects, it is in fact meeting its mission. In fact, that's the kind of conversation that we always enjoy having, is the creative ability for local priorities to be funded with land bank tools is such a blessing for some of these priorities that maybe don't have other federal or state funding sources. So I know that was not a yes or no to your question.
No, I mean, that makes a
but
lot of sense.
I guess, yeah, thank you. And Patrick, I don't know if you have anything more legal that you wanted to state from your perspective.
No, I would agree and confirm what you had said. I think the other consideration, excuse me, in that is whatever funds the land bank does generate and have in its account, the agreement, excuse me, will determine what's an allowable expense. So certainly, in terms of like sharing with the county, I don't know that they can just share those revenues because the land bank is set up as a separate entity of what they call a public body corporate. So any action by the board would have to comply with the IGA, the intergovernmental agreement, to make sure that it's an allowable expense. You can't just be, oh, we have excess funds, let's go give it to whomever we want. I think there are some I'll call restrictions, for lack of a better word, in the agreement.
Got it. That makes sense. All right, two last questions. So because the
You're our favorite.
So a land bank could have like a shared relationship with the county, could share staff and enter into those agreements, pay for those types of things. is there, as Corp Counsel looked at incompatibility office issues, because, I mean, even though the treasurer's not an issue, but the executive would in theory have to sign off on those agreements, the interlocal agreements as well. And so I don't know, is that a? So if the land bank said, we want to share in the, I mean, renting space in Oakland County for this. So there will be agreement from the county with the land bank. It's a separate legal entity. But in a situation, if the county executive is on there, it's potentially on both sides of the contract.
County executive wouldn't, I mean,
Has to sign the resolution that would authorize the interlocal agreement.
but the county executive wouldn't be the board of commissioners approving a separate agreement with a separate legal entity.
That he potentially is on the board of.
Yeah, but he doesn't, the board of commissioners approves the resolution, not the county executive, right? The Oakland County, I mean, you, like, if you wanna enter
The
in.
resolution signed by the county executive. He has to approve it too.
Yeah, so,
I just want to make sure that there's no incompatibility office issue with how these things are structured. So,
Just, Patrick, that might also be, because Patrick, this is kind of your lane, is that, so do you, Patrick, did you get the question?
I think I got a part of it, and I was thinking exactly what he mentioned at the end, that there are certain state statutes, the incompatibility office and so forth. It becomes a conflict of interest question. I think you probably would want to refer to your Oakland Corporation Council to decide.
Which I'm doing. Yeah, I just think we should check it out.
There is, depending upon the structure of whatever it is you're proposing, that you're speculating, there could potentially be an issue which might have to be resolved with the state statutes that apply to government officials.
Right.
It's a little hard to give you any more advice than that.
I just think we should just look at it. I mean, I don't know. No, yes, okay. And then the last thing, this came to Commissioner Powell's question, I mean, our point earlier about the structure of the board. While this board is also a working board, I think the frequency of meeting and the expertise requirement, I mean, set up, and I know like item E would like to see if this committee and the board would be supportive. I mean, as it's written, it says a resident from Oakland County appointed by the County Board of Commissioners where the resident should have real estate experience. Would like to see that we can add basically real estate experience, economic development, housing planning experience
to mirror
allow
those.
them to mirror all the other ones, so
I
there's
agree.
flexibility. Also to help round out the expertise on this board. So I'm done talking now. If we can make that amendment at some point.
Thank you to my favorite chair. And we are amenable to that.
I created a
we
monster,
for
I can
sure,
see.
we're good with that, absolutely. So thank you.
Okay. Do we need to do anything with the resolution to say that, or do we need an amendment?
Do you want to do it here? I mean, we can just say an amendment to Article 4,
1, 2, 3.
Section 4.01, Item E, and just basically put a comma after experience and add have real estate, economic development, housing, or planning experience. Or basically the same, basically the same language.
But it says in D.
Yes, indeed, yeah. So they must have, it should read, must have experience with economic development, housing, planning, or real estate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why does Ian keep doing that?
So do we need a motion on that amendment? Motion by Commissioner Woodward, supported by Commissioner McGilvery. Any more discussion on that?
Okay, so.
And I am still going to call on you.
Just to be clear, which paragraph was that amendment?
It's under E.
4.01E.
4.01E?
And after have, say, experience with economic development, housing, planning, or real estate.
Just like the one above it.
Housing, planning, or real estate?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
And the second was who? Who seconded it?
McGilvery.
McGilvery? Okay.
Okay, so let's go ahead and vote on that amendment.
Okay. Count the vote.
Are you prompting?
Back online. I'm
We're going to
counting.
try doing it electronically. They tell me they've fixed our little problem. There we go.
Well, we shall see.
And Coel?
It's all right.
And Long?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Back to the
Still waiting.
discussion.
We're not getting any IT awards.
Still waiting for the vote.
He can maybe, because he's my
Charles and
savior,
Woodward?
but
Oh, Woodward?
everything.
Yes.
Woodward's a yes.
Charles?
Yes.
Yes.
She already prompted. I was just missing those two. Motion carried, 10 yeas, 0 nays.
Excellent. Okay. Was that it, Commissioner Woodward? Commissioner Kowal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me see if I can remember. Couple of things. I think I heard in there that somebody say that land bank property could eventually become subsidized housing. Was I correct in hearing that? I think that's something that,
Yes. I mean, that is absolutely a possibility. You have, right, the tools, you can, whatever, to put it back on the tax rolls if it fits. You ultimately have the approval of who you're going to enter an agreement with to purchase the property.
okay, would local government have any say in that?
They would ideally be represented by their member on the board if they're a city or a township. So, but again, I mean, we work very collaboratively with the communities that we exist in.
So I think that is when we are looking at property, we're talking to the communities. So anything that happens, say in Pontiac, I'm working with the building department, the mayor, the planners. So I'm not gonna sell somebody properties if the city doesn't want it. That's not what I want to happen, right? I want them to control what they want in their own communities. And we look at their master plans and figure out what works best. If they don't want it, we're not gonna do it. And then, it's kind of a give and take, because there's some projects that they want to happen, that they're looking for properties too, and if they're in tax foreclosure and they want them, we'll deed them over to the city and they can do the project. So there's some different ways. Can it be affordable housing? It can be affordable housing. It can be market rate housing. We're working with somebody in Pontiac right now to do 150 affordable or market rate houses in the city. So it just depends on what people want. I don't know what cities want. I don't pretend to know what cities want.
Okay,
Yeah.
I appreciate that answer, and I'm
Yeah.
just always concerned about local control.
Absolutely.
But on a totally different note, my understanding is that this is going to be, it's a quasi-governmental body politic, as they say, but it's going to basically be housed somewhere in the county, and that's where the board will meet, and they will also need a staff. I think there's like 145 people in Detroit, is it, that man this? Yeah. So what I'm thinking is, okay, for now, there's going to be a transition period, obviously, because of what you're doing right now in the treasurer's division, and that's going to gradually get put over to the land bank. And what they're supposed to be doing is generating enough revenue to keep on going, to be self-sustaining. So and then ultimately, I think that would actually save your budget money. Am I correct in that?
Yes?
Right.
Yes?
Okay. And I have to say, I'm not really wild about quasi-governmental entities that are performing a public function. I think that's been a problem in Detroit. It's the perception that it's not transparent. So I would hope that we would make every effort to be as transparent as possible. And I had some other stuff rolling around in there. I'm trying to think of what it was now.
And while you're thinking about it, it is, I think in here it specifically says it's subject to open meetings.
Right, right.
So-
Oh, I guess the other thing, I kind of thought that this was just dealing with surplus property, but it's dealing with foreclosed as well. So the land bank
It's the
would.
same, in essence, the same thing, right? Our surplus properties that we have came to us through not selling
Right.
at the auction. So
But
those
it's
are
not just that,
foreclosed.
it's foreclosed as well.
Well, they go to the auction if they are foreclosed. So the
Yeah.
process, right? A property is foreclosed,
Right.
and then it goes to the auction,
Right.
And then if nothing happens at the first or the second auction, then it comes to Jill's inventory, if you will.
And is that when it goes into the land bank?
So
It
that,
could go
that's
into the land bank, yes.
correct.
So you're not stepping in?
Unless you decide to step in,
Oh.
but you would step in under the new, the law that changed is you step in, and if there is a claim on it, then you are paying market value, market rate for it. If there's no claim, then you're just paying the back taxes for it. If nothing happens to it, then it can be given to the land bank.
So instead of being put up directly for sale in one of your, when you had those big sales, the land bank could step in and take it first before then it's offered for sale. And I understand the point there is to make sure that that it does, there's a certain time period that, that has to be fixed up and occupied and whatnot, and hopefully to prevent speculators who just sit there and do nothing with it.
Correct.
Okay.
And so, but nothing changes, it's just the order of which, because right of first refusal already exists, and that's part of the process. It is technically federal, right? I guess the federal government could, if they have something, but it's the state first, then, as Jody says, the state, the county land bank, the city, then the county. So that's the order moving forward. That was what changed in the law that we voted on in 2020. So it's not like we are now creating a new process. It is the existing process. It just puts the land bank in the group that can exercise first right of refusal.
But not saying they have to or that they even will. The land bank could just, it could be properties that are left over that, there was no, interest in, and it ends up not getting sold at the sale, so then it's available as surplus or to move into the land bank.
Okay. And do you ever see us being overwhelmed with property that we can't take care of? That, once again, that's been going on in Detroit, where they just, and they're ticketing other properties for being blighted when their own property is blighted.
I don't, because you are not required to take properties. You have the option to.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So I think that is ultimately what makes it so that you have the discretion when it comes to which properties you want to take within the land bank.
And I think even in the worst of times in Oakland County, we had that top number of 2,800 properties. The Detroit Land Bank, I think, has 50,000 properties.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they have a lot. They have a lot of properties.
All right, well, there's some more questions rolling around in there, and probably, I'll tell my favorite treasurer right now that I'm probably going to vote no today, but I hope to come around to being a yes at the board meeting, because I'm still,
You know how to reach me. Yeah, call me.
All right,
Anything I
thanks.
can walk you through, I'm happy to help. I appreciate your consideration, for sure.
Commissioner Powell, you had another
Just for
question?
transparency, because I have worked with Jill, in some form, shape, or way with dealing with properties in our community, I will let my colleagues know that the process that is in place, it is a great process. They are accessible. Our people who are interested in these properties give great reviews of our treatment as far as customer service, and in the upkeep of our properties in my city, the Oakland County upkeeps all their properties, just to let you know, from a cosmetics. And anytime we report anything that's going on those properties, they are expeditiously moving to make sure they correct the issue. So I just want to let y'all know. And I've been dealing with Jill even when I was working with State Rep Gramo. So we kind of go back with a lot of our troubled properties in my city. So I just wanted you all to know that.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
Yeah, I think too, can I say something to that? I think my message to people is, what do you want to live next door to? I don't want to live next to a house that is dilapidated. I don't want to live next to illegal dumping. So I do my best when we get a call from the city to clean it up. It's not fair.
Yeah.
And there's certain cities that have been neglected for a long time. And why is that? I don't know. But I want to do my best to make it
Bad
better.
leadership. We're good now, though.
You can say that. Yes, we're good now.
I had one more question. It came up, not the eminent domain, but the aspect of the land bank taking up properties that are just blighted, that have been ticketed numerous times, refused to correct the situation, that the land bank can then step in and, no?
It has to be foreclosed.
Yeah.
Oh, it has to be
We have to
foreclosed.
We have
Okay.
to have
Yeah, we
the
cannot-
rights to the property, right? We have to have
Okay.
the ownership of the property to be able to do anything with the property.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I just have one question, and that relates to speculators. How do we make sure that the properties that we are acquiring and then processing through this don't end up in the hands of speculators that either, make it, the cost of housing even higher than it needs to be? So is there anything in the process that kind of truncates that if we see that a speculator is trying to do this?
And you talked about how many people worked at the Detroit Land Bank. We have one, so Jill does the work of 100 people. She does an amazing job, and so this is part
Superwoman, yeah.
of this is part of what she deals with and what she does. So I will let Jill speak to that specifically. Yeah, it is a vetting process.
I know people now. There's some players out there that and you're not going to sell property to them because they're not doing the right thing. So we have an application. It's very robust. Have you lost property foreclosure? Do you have any code and ordinance violations in the city or in the county? Tell me all the properties you own. I want to call code enforcement and see if you are a good player. Are you a landlord, and how are your renters? How do they feel about you? There's a lot you can do to make sure that you're not selling to the wrong person. Some slip through, but for the most part, I think I've gotten it down with the help of lots of other people around the communities. Like Hazel Park had a ton of properties, and there's a lot of interest in those as their property values went up. So I worked really closely with the city and made sure I was selling them to a developer that had a history there, that did the right thing. So I think there's a lot of ways to do it. You just have to know who you're dealing with, and you have to know how to read people a little bit, right?
I think
more information is better for me.
It boils down to due diligence, right? Making sure you're doing the due diligence. And one thing that you didn't touch on, but I know this is something that Jill specifically does, is that some people will come in and say, I want to buy 150 properties or something, and Jill will say, let's start with one, right? Let's see your track record. And then before you do anything else, we want to make sure that you are a responsible steward of that property, and that you are going to do what you say you're going to do. And then those that have a track record, you can start to work with them more. Yeah.
So you really have quite a bit of discretion.
Yeah, and that would be the same thing with the land bank itself, right? I mean, ultimately, then you have 5 board members who are deciding on things. So it's more people who will put an eye, have an eye looking at what's going on.
Okay, thank you. I don't see anybody else wanting any other conversations, so with that, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
The resolution is amended?
On the resolution as amended, yes, thank you.
Co-op?
No.
Woodward? Oh, you got it. Long, are you on?
Yeah, it didn't come up, so no.
Okay.
Not because of that. It's no right now, because it didn't come up. I don't know what's going on.
Charles, you bell? What'd you get?
It didn't come up, but I'm a yes.
Okay.
See, my son was come up with something.
And Charles?
Yes.
Oh, see, so a lot of ours. I don't want to touch it.
Madam Chair, you have 8 yeas, 2 nays.
Okay, motion carries, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. All right, thank you.
Next up, we have the item 8C, Water Resources Commissioner Resolution, Northwest Oakland Sewer General Fund Transfer to the Drainage District account. I need a motion. Commissioner Powell, supported by Commissioner Cavell. Let's see, we have Jim Nash and Brian Coburn.
Good afternoon. I can go ahead and take this, Jim, if you'd like. This is a housekeeping item. There's been a couple of chicken and the egg moments in this Northwest Oakland sewer project, and this is one of them. While we're creating the drainage district, we received funds. We received funds from the communities in the amount of $200,000. The drain was formed in May of this year, and while we were going through that process, we needed a place to put the funds that were being deposited. So those went into the general fund. This resolution would move those out of the general fund and put them into the newly created drain fund, where then they can be used for the benefit of the project.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Mr. Coburn? Seeing none, let's go ahead and prompt the vote. Charlie, I'm going to need you to run the meeting while I go be the speaker for the next item.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, did you call me?
Long, are you
Yes.
on?
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
it might connect, though. We're trying for the next vote.
McGilvery? Didn't
No.
pop up. Did you say no?
Yes.
Okay. Madam Chair, you have 9 yeas, 1 nay.
Okay. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item is item 8D, the Board of Commissioners resolution sponsoring the Oakland County Pioneer Historical Society Grounds Improvement Project. I am the sponsor of that. I'm going to let Charlie take over for a minute. And if Jill would come to the table with me. So this is,
Don't we need a motion?
we do need a motion.
Yeah, I'm in charge now. There's gonna be some changes. I'd like to amend the agenda. No, all right. Moved by Commissioner Powell, seconded by Commissioner Gershenson.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. This is my pet project, and it falls in the category of Board of Commissioners Special Projects. It started out as an attempt to put some pollinator garden kinds of stuff over at the Pioneer and Historical Society. If you don't know where that is, you go up Telegraph to Dixie Highway, Cesar Chavez, you turn right, and you go down about 1.5 miles, and it's on the right, and has a 160-year-old historical home on it, the Wisner home. It's got several buildings. It contains a lot of the important Oakland County artifacts and history there on site. Oakland County Board of Commissioners used to have a financial support of that went on, but it was one of the things that got killed in the recession way back when. The organization themselves is, they have a board of directors, which has about 20 people on it. They're actually quite healthy as a charity organization kind of thing, nonprofit. They have an endowment, but their grounds have really not been improved over a number of years, and it has a lot of overgrown trees. And when we started talking about this pollinator garden, that's when I met Jill in this context. She runs a group called Growing Pontiac. They came to me and said, well, we want to be part of this. And then the Historical Society themselves had a lot of interest, and we were talking earlier today about Oakland University. They came to us and said, we want to be part of this project too. So what we're proposing is that we provide $25,000, up to $25,000 to them to put this project together. And what we would expect to have happen by the end of this summer is we're going to put together a plan to improve the grounds, and it would include a variety of gardens as well as potentially some better pathways on the property. Because the map that we have is that aerial view, you can see it's really kind of, there's not a lot of organization to how you get around it on foot. People just kind of walk, the society feels like they need some better pathways there too. So the idea is we would give them $25,000, and then they're going to actually pull the project together. They have a designer that we're working with and a group of people to have a plan in place this summer and plant the first garden this fall. That's the goal. And to do that, they need to be able to order the plants by the end of June, early July. So that's why this project is moving at this time. If anybody has any questions.
Chairman?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, oh, yeah. What do you got?
Wake up. So at Michigan State, so I just want to pass this along and tell them to pass it along. They did studies where you said there's walkways wherever. make sure you put those pathways where the beat it down paths are. That's what Michigan State did before they put many years ago, before they put their sidewalks and stuff. Where the kids were walking is where they put the sidewalks. So you said there's some paths, beaten down, so make sure the paths are where people, just pass it along, because obviously that's the good spots for paths.
Yeah.
That's a really good point, and
Yeah,
that's
and
one of the
people don't
basic
think of
things
it.
they teach in industrial design.
Right, so I just passed it along to the committee, whoever,
Resistance.
that's most likely where the path should be, so.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trying to help before they put a path in the wrong spot.
I was just gonna say, I met Commissioner Markham when I think you had called maybe, I'm not sure, but I started this nonprofit called Growing Pontiac because we had lots of vacant lots in the city of Pontiac, and we saw lots of gardens, and we're like, what do we do with all these vacant parcels in neighborhoods, and how do we get access to residents of the city? So that happened 2015. It became a nonprofit in 2018. We now have an executive director that is very smart in all things garden related. So we met and we talked about what the historical context of that space is and how we can also do signage, and it's an educational process, food garden, prairie garden, garden in the sun, rain garden, all these different things you can use to teach residents and kids about where they come from, where this place came from, who used to live here. And we've also engaged Oakland County Parks as a partner. So I think that's it's really interesting to see when you have a cool project, how many people come out and want to participate in it. So I think we just keep seeing more and more people, and that's exciting. And I think another thing that we talked about is all these vacant properties. Is this something, we've been looking at another WRC property, can we replicate this around the county? We know how important pollinator gardens are and green infrastructure is. How can we help our stormwater? I think there's a lot of things that if we show people how to do it, they can do it in their own neighborhoods. So I think signage was another aspect of making sure people understand what they're doing and why it's there and what it looks like. Normandy Oaks has a really cool example in Oakland, or in Royal Oak, where they have a prairie garden that looks like just a bunch of grass, but it has a purpose. And there's signage that tells people exactly what it does. So it's just one more thing to make a project even better.
Thank you. Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since Chris mentioned MSU, have you reached out to MSU Extension and their Master Gardener program?
I have, but we haven't connected, but I expect to integrate them into this conversation for sure.
All right, thank you.
All right, if there's no further questions, let's prompt the vote.
I guess I need to go back and vote. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good points. She's right, it's amazing when you have something that people want to be part of, they just call you up and go, oh, we want to do this. Thank you for covering for me, Charlie.
That's great, that's great.
Yes.
It's riveting stuff.
Mr. Chair, you have 10 yeas and 0 nays.
Motion passes.
Excellent.
Next thing.
Thank you. All right. Next up, then, we have item 8E, the Fiscal Services Management and Budget Quarterly Report, Fiscal Year 2022 Second Quarter Financial Forecast and Budget Amendments. Need a motion. Commissioner Powell, supported by Commissioner McGilvery. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. This agenda item could also be entitled The Last Ride of Lynn Sonkis. Who's just 2 weeks away from retirement. She told me that her dream has always been to perform a musical performance of the quarterly forecast.
Well, you're pushing it today.
But in all seriousness, we'll keep this short since there's a long agenda. You have before you the quarterly forecast through the second quarter of the fiscal year. Not huge changes from what you saw in the first quarter forecast. Overall, compared to the amended budget, we are projecting a positive figure of $10.9 million in terms of favorability. We'd expect at year end. On the revenue side, there are a few things going up and down, but it's pretty stable. overall. And then on the expenditure side, we have positive favorability of $11 million. I think the primary factor then there is continued slower hiring and expenditures, due to both COVID and the tight labor market. Obviously, inflation continues to be an item we're watching. At this point, we don't see any areas where higher costs are pushing departments to be over budget. They're able to use expenditure favorability to cover that. We continue to monitor the increase in fuel costs, which obviously is a real cost, for the sheriff's budget and for the county as a whole. However, we think that's manageable for the time being, and we'll continue to monitor as rates are built in future years. That's the high-level version, and Lynn is going to highlight a few of the key budget amendments for your awareness.
So within the resolution itself, starting on PDF page 192 of the packet, there are most of the whereas statements within the resolution are adjustments that are net neutral. They're changing between line items within the respective departmental budgets or correcting a grant number that we do a new grant number tracker for each new award, so it's truing that information up. But there are several items within the resolution itself that I just wanted to highlight and point out to you. At the bottom of 192, the last two whereas statements are for resolutions that were taken up at the May 12th board meeting to approve positions, some operational costs for the sheriff's office, and in both of those resolutions, 168 and 169, it noted that the subsequent budget, or the budget amendment, would take place in the subsequent quarterly forecast. So those are included in Schedule C and D of the packet. Moving on to page 193. We also have the first whereas statement on that page that is reflecting resolutions that were previously approved for projects from the American Rescue Plan funding that took place in 2021. The appropriation was made at that time, but the funds were not expended in 2021. So we're reappropriating those dollars in 2022. So it's just a timing issue on that. Going down a couple whereas statements to the middle of the page, there are a couple of statements that relate to road funding. So there was a $109,000 balance that remained on the local road improvement projects that were for communities that did not participate at that time. So we're just allocating that back into the non-departmental transfers section for availability for local road improvement projects. Again, those would still require the Board of Commissioner approval for any agreements or utilization of those funds. Below that one is a roughly 2.9, almost $3 million for the tri-party program. So for many of you who may be familiar with the prior to the 2022 budget, we had a fund balance assignment for the tri-party road program. And each resolution that came before the board appropriated dollars from that fund balance assignment. With the 22 budget, it was we made an appropriation for $2 million for the 22 fiscal year that was put in the non-departmental transfers budget, 909 as we refer to it in the internal fiscal services department. And then resolutions are brought before the Board of Commissioners for consideration for each one of those agreements, where we will reappropriate it out of the non-departmental transfers into non-departmental operating for those projects. We're taking the balance that remained, the $2.9 million that was remaining in the assigned fund balance, and putting it in the non-departmental transfers. Those are monies that have accumulated over the years where the communities were allocated those dollars, but the projects have not been brought forward to the Board of Commissioners yet for consideration. So as you know, road projects are expensive. Some of the communities save up their funding and then bring forward a project at that time. Just below that one, there is a positive note that the Board of Commissioners had a reapportionment project where monies were previously transferred for that, and there was favorability of roughly $43,000. So those monies are being returned to the general fund. Next on page 194, the third whereas down. So if you recall, during the presentation of the year-end 2021 audit and the final numbers that were published in our 2021 ACFR, the general fund had a ending fund balance of roughly $288 million. We did make an adjustment with our year-end financial statements to recognize the timing of property tax revenue that increased the unassigned fund balance. With this quarterly forecast, we're just asking that the unassigned fund balance be reallocated back to the plan of having money set aside in the non-economic budget risks and the strategic investment plan funding. So it's neutral overall for fund balance. It's just shifting it back into those respective fund balance categories. And those are the major, I'll say, changes that are not necessarily neutral or would be unique to a quarterly forecast presentation at this time.
Okay, I will open it up to the commission, starting with Commissioner Woodward, followed by Commissioner Powell.
So, I mean, Lynn, that last piece, so how much was in unassigned fund balance?
So it was about $15.8 million was the end of year.
The total
reserve.
unassigned, okay. And so
Yes.
just breaking that into the two groups, like,
Yeah, so it initially was like roughly just over $1 million when we took the year-end report in December, and then when we did the true-up with the timing of the property tax revenue, that increased to roughly 15.8 million going from memory. And so we're just taking that down to, because if it had been that high, the intent would have been to put it in the strategic investment plan and the non-economic budget risk.
right. So is it 5 in non-economic and 10 in?
That's correct. And
Yes.
that 5 basically allows us to, we had taken, the board had taken 5 million out of that non-economic budget risk for the resolutions in response to the Oxford shooting. So that allows us to bring it back up to that original 5% target for that assignment.
Good, thanks.
Commissioner Powell, followed by Commissioner Havel.
Now, anytime in our budget season currently or moving forward, has the sheriff department been asked to cut their funding of 1.5 million? At any point, at last budget or budget moving forward, have we asked the sheriff department to cut their budget by 1.5 million?
The sheriff's department has been asked to look at reductions like every other department has, as part of that plan that the board approved and was adopted in December of 2020. Last year they were able to achieve that through efficiencies and identifying vacant positions that were no longer needed.
So, but they were asked to make some cuts.
Correct.
Was it about in that rough amount, about 1.5?
That sounds right, but I don't want to.
Okay, I know, okay, but they were. Okay, thank you.
So, so the budget task for all departments was the goal is to have county operations equal the amount of tax revenue coming in every year. And so a lot of, departments have unfilled positions that are vacant. Some have been unfilled for 3-4 many years. And so there has been no layoff in the sheriff's department.
Correct.
There's been, there's been no, any request for equipment has always been granted. But in order to make the number, it's more of a ledger issue to make those appropriate cuts so that the county money coming in pays for the county operations going out. So
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Cavell.
To what you were saying, Commissioner Powell, that I think the 1.5, that is though, the budget office asked 4% department staff reductions, but the sheriff got away with 1.5%.
No.
No.
I ain't gonna worry about it, but thank you.
All right.
I got it.
They got an exemption or
confirmed it.
something, right?
I just-
A couple
I had to
departments
get
got
clarity.
exemptions.
I had to get clarity for a constituent, you know?
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm curious, my main question was though about the $10 million to the general fund strategic investment plan. Is there any thought, and just floating it up there, is there any thought to when making programs related to ARPA, the like loans or continuity or legacy costs of them would have to be borne by the county. Is there any thought to this or another pot of money that is in the general fund being able to be put towards like a continuity, right? Children's savings account, there's going to be a legacy cost of that if we don't do just a pilot. Can there be a thought to?
So the principle, that the administration has operated under, and I think that the board has adhered to as its adopted resolutions, is that we are, they need to be one-time expenditures that, if there's a long-term ongoing cost, have an external, funding source for that long-term financial sustainability. So I can't speak to any specific proposal, but, our principle has been, that we're not going to make long-term commitments of general fund dollars, and I think that's actually been stated in all the resolutions. So that's what I can speak to today.
Okay, so you don't have an interest in this going towards, this would not be considered an external thing because it's an internal? Okay.
These are county funds.
Gotcha, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I would like to get back, and I will call on you in a second. I would like to get back to the question of the sheriff, because I just want it crystal clear. All the departments were asked to cut a couple of years ago now, and they were given the choice of you can cut now your 4%, or they had 3 years to do it. The sheriff took their cut all at once, I understand. And they do have, as Commissioner Woodward said, a lot of open positions yet at the Sheriff's Department. I want everybody to understand that this board and the Finance Committee of the board supports what the sheriff is doing, and we have not tightened their belts. They come to us asking for there's an item agenda right now about a truck, right? So I just want that very clear. We are in support of the Sheriff's Department. The cuts that were asked to be taken were asked of all departments to get us in line with our expenditures and our revenues, and I know I'm being repetitive, but I want people to understand that this is how we're operating.
I think another way of stating it in one sentence is that there has been no reduction to the sheriff's office budget that has resulted in a reduction in law enforcement services in this county.
That's a very good statement. Thank you very much.
And I would add one extra sentence. We've actually added additional personnel. We've added additional equipment over time. So we've actually put more money in. So that, and we've actually added to the services that are being provided.
All true. Thank you. Commissioner Kowal.
Thank you. My question was initially about the tri-party, but in response to the Sheriff's Department, I believe the sheriff gave up quite a few positions and in the budget cutting during the Great Recession that did not come back online. And I believe that he was able to comply with this budget task partly because of COVID. The jail's only been like half full. So I don't know what's going to happen if the jail starts to fill up again, now that people are out and about and getting into trouble and whatnot. But I would say that was a great deal of what enabled him to be able to, comply without cutting valuable positions. And I guess you'd have to verify that with the sheriff, but that's my understanding of it.
I think that's a fair statement.
Yes. So just keep in mind that he may need those positions again. So he was able to cut, but it was only because of that. But then I just want to ask, the tri-party road funding, that's just something we do every year, right? So it's not like it went away.
This has to do with the transition,
Right.
Where we're trying to make sure we're very clear up front in the budget,
Okay.
what dollars we expect to expend. So there's sort of this grandfathered fund balance assignment dollars. Now it's a direct appropriation, so we're converting that grandfathered fund balance assignment into a direct appropriation.
Right, within the non-departmental transfers, and it'll still
Okay.
require a Board of Commissioner resolution for the agreements that come forward.
But it's still there, it didn't go anywhere.
That's correct.
It's really just a transactional process thing. It doesn't change anything in terms
Thank
of
you.
what's available to locals for the program.
All right. Any more comments or questions on this item? Commissioner? Okay. Let's prompt the vote.
It's great, Charlie, thank you. You want some?
Thank you.
I forgot to
No
vote.
one likes Lorna Doones? Someone is passing?
Oh, thanks.
That's what makes it so good.
Everybody voted?
No.
No, didn't prompt you.
Come
Okay,
Mine did.
Long,
Yes.
Moss,
Yes.
Cavell,
Yes.
McGilvray.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next up, we move into the, excuse me, Legislative Affairs and Government Operations Committee recommendations. Item number A, Human Resources Collective Bargaining Agreement fiscal years 2022, 23, 24, and 25 with the Michigan Association of Public Employees, MAPE, representing identified Children's Village supervisory employees. I need a motion. Commissioner Charles, supported by Commissioner Moss. Okay. Is there anybody to speak to this?
April's here, but my camera's not working. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, apologies for my camera. Yes, before you, you have the MAPE, which is the Children's Village Supervisors. This is a new union. They were not unionized prior to this. You may be familiar with MAPE as our Children's Village employees moved to MAPE for the line worker or the non-supervisory workers met with MAPE this last year, so that may sound familiar to you. But this one is a new unit and it's just supervisors only. We have 2 classifications in this with about 16 employees. Much like all of the other ones, a lot of things have been memorialized and how they did things over the last, just memorializing what they have done as non-represented, and as well as a few other little changes. This year, for fiscal year 2022, they'll be getting a 4% as we looked at their factors and found we were off on one of them. But then the remainders of the 23, 24, and 25 are in alignment with the 2% and the need to that the other represented units had. They've also agreed to all of our health care. They had requested to adjust some of their paid holidays to mirror the other folks in the other union. And I think those were the big things for this particular unit. You will notice in this one, though, however, they do have a brand new contract because they are a brand new union. So all of this has been vetted and approved to form from our legal department.
Thank you, April. Any questions? I'm filling in for Gwen. Okay, great. Then let's prompt the vote.
No, nothing.
I got it now.
Oh, it did.
Oh, wait, maybe?
Yeah.
No?
Still spinning.
Well, if it's not coming up, and Gwen will be back in a minute.
Wait a minute, here we go.
Let's just talk amongst ourselves.
I mean, it must be something.
All I gotta do is tally up the ways and the names.
Well, right, but Gwen, we want Gwen to have her voice heard. The people of
All right, just
Melvoy.
refresh it,
Nobody.
you know?
You know?
So if you refresh, did you get?
No.
Just refresh with your, it comes up. Try refresh. Okay. Try to refresh, because that's what I just, she did at mine. Try to refresh, and mine came up. Dave just did it.
You can also just say their names.
Gary, get your
I'm stalling
refresh.
for time for Gwen. Yeah.
And then mine came up again. It's weird.
Oh, hey, Gwen.
Yeah.
Oh, you got a first for some reason. I'm ADD. There we go. Stand up and
I know my.
So that was just the first one, right?
Yes.
McGillivray?
Yes.
It's something different every time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, it's weird, it's not even.
This is hit or miss.
It is, it's so weird to me.
I better not yell at Mike Tim next time he comes back here with all this internet.
Okay, so that was,
The first contract.
No way.
The second one,
Our
yeah.
award winning.
I know.
all right, next item up is item 9B. Also, Human Resources Collective Bargaining Agreement, fiscal years 2022, 23, and 24, supplemental with United Auto Workers Local 889, UAW, representing Corporation Counsel and Risk Management supervisory and non-supervisory employees. I need a motion. Cavell, supported by Woodward. Hello again, April.
Hello. Oh, there's the camera. Look at that. Thank you very much. This is our newest supplement with the UAW. As mentioned, it covers our corporation counsel as well as our risk management department. Again, as in with the other ones, memorializing with the many of the benefits they've already received as general salary as the non-represented, if that makes sense. As well as a few other little things in here, and you'll see in their supplemental that are more administrative in nature. No change to their salary grades or anything like that, and they will fall in line with the master supplement. So as we recall, back in in December of 20, there was a master agreement made, and they will fall under all of those all of those things listed in the master agreement, and anything different is here in the supplemental.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on this one? Seeing none, let's go ahead and prompt the vote. Takes us longer to vote than it does to.
Do a roll call.
Okay, mine came up.
Don't worry about it.
Mine came up.
No, mine is weird.
Oh, you got it weird.
I've been doing good.
Spitting up at the top or no?
No, man. No.
Yours is like on.
It's weird.
It looks like that.
I'm a yes.
Okay,
I'm a yes. It didn't come up.
this just takes forever. I just did it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, she said Cole. I thought she said Paul.
Powell?
Yes.
Moss?
Yes.
Charles? Yes. Madam Chair, you have 10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you.
We do need to stand.
Thank you, April.
Thank you.
All right, next up, cranking right through them. Item 10, Economic Development and Infrastructure Committee recommendations. Item 10A, Economic Development Veterans Services Grant Application for fiscal year 2023, County Veterans Service Fund Grant Application Authorization. Commissioner Long, supported by Commissioner Cavell.
Thanks. This is a request to approve an application for the County Veterans Service Fund for fiscal year 23. It's available through the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency. This year's allocation is $255,319, and we have would like to utilize those funds, $90,000 to provide enhanced transportation services to our offices, $75,000 for veterans resource fairs. We provide free gift cards, Meyer gift cards, and food boxes to encourage veterans and dependents to attend those events. $15,000 for events and workshops. We've got some business workshops and entrepreneur workshops that we're kicking off actually tomorrow that we're excited about to help veterans who are interested in starting their own business or may have their own business and want to enhance it. And also $32 for outreach technology needs. When we do these outreach events, we want to make sure we have signature pads, copiers, things like that. So the transportation program is something that we just kicked off a little while ago using fiscal year 22 grants. So we feel like starting October 1st, we've already done the interlocal agreement with SMART, we'll be able to just change the dates on that, get that started right away, and continue with that, what we hope is going to be a successful program. Veterans Resource Fairs have been very successful. We've been holding at least one a month, and we've been getting about 100 veterans and dependents to attend each one of those. So we're excited about those, and we're going to continue those in fiscal year 23.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Commissioner Cavell.
Thank you. Hi, Garth. So the transportation component of this is like the previous year's grant. It's to and from appointments at the VA, right?
Appointments at our office. The idea with the Michigan Veterans Affairs County Veterans Service Fund grant is to try and connect veterans to their federal benefits or some of the state and local benefits. So we use it as a way to get them into our office where we can meet with them and we can go over benefits, apply for those, get them connected to those benefits. One of the things that we know is that we have serve an older population. At least 56% of our veterans are over age 65, and sometimes transportation can be a barrier to them getting into our office and getting benefits. So, and as we know, with gas prices going up to who knows where, we think that this is something that people are going to maybe take advantage of free transportation going forward. So it's a program, like I said, it took us a while to get started. Working with SMART and then some of the COVID issues we had earlier this year. So we've got it going now, and we think this is going to be something that's successful going forward. And then if it is, we can go back to the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency and say, look, here's what we've been able to do with these funds. Can we expand it to maybe use it for medical appointments, at private medical facilities, or veterans to go shopping, things like that. So we're hoping that we get a lot of utilization. We kicked off. We did a press release, and we've kicked off a marketing campaign, so we're going to be promoting this opportunity for veterans and dependents to get into our office.
So is there thought then to potentially using ARPA dollars to help with piloting or expediting or trying out what you were just saying at the end there of helping veterans get to their medical appointments, helping veterans get to pharmacy or doctor or grocery? Because right now you're just taking people to the VA or appointments with the county and then back home, but they need more than that. So has there been any conversations with your office and the ARPA folks?
There's not, no.
Is that something you're interested in doing, or does that not work with your department plan?
I'd be happy to talk with somebody about it. Like I said, we've got this going. We want to get it started and make sure it's something that is being utilized and successful. And it's been a challenge. We have a fairly small department, and trying to get this organized with SMART and everything has been a process.
All right.
Okay. Anybody else?
No.
All right, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
Call me.
No, try it though. But you don't want me to try to refresh. Now that you want that green stuff on there. Oh, now it's going to work tonight.
I don't care. I'll just do it oral.
I did not get one, but I'm a yes.
Moss?
Yes.
So it might come up the next time now.
That's
Yeah.
so weird.
Hutchinson?
Yes.
Charles? Yes. Cavell?
Yes.
Markham?
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 10 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay. Next up, we have item 10B. Facilities Planning and Engineering Resolution, Children's Village Complex Life Safety Enhancements. I need a motion. Commissioner Powell, supported by Commissioner McGilvery. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm Jason Warner. I'm the manager of Planning and Engineering with Facilities Management. Ed Joss, our Director of Facilities Management, is with me. And I believe maybe Heather Calcaterra is on the virtual meeting for any questions. So the Children's Village Life Safety Project will bring the buildings, 8 of the buildings in Children's Village up to current building codes. The planning engineering group has contracted with an annual architecture firm and consulted with the Waterford Fire Department to recommend and price out the items that can be addressed at the buildings. The items to address that we have in the plans are things like door swings, door hardware, fire exit signs, emergency lighting. Most of the buildings are occupied 24 hours a day, so this was, one of the projects that was higher on the priority list. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
I'll open it up to the commission. Anybody have any questions? Seeing no one, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
Yes.
Is that a yes?
That is a yes.
Okay.
That's customarily a yes. Affirmative.
Yes.
A yay. That would be.
Madam Chair, you have 10 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Next up then is item 10C, Children's Village Security Enhancements, Fencing and Gates. I need a motion. Commissioner Cavell, supported by Commissioner Woodward. Hello again.
Good afternoon again.
Sorry.
Fatigue is real.
Oh, gosh, that was perfect.
The Children's Village fencing project will provide installation of a fence around the entire Children's Village campus, which is roughly 80 acres.
Can you pull your mic up a little closer, please?
The fence is
Thank you.
just over 5,600 lineal feet. It also provides new gates at both entrances to the campus, the Children's Village campus, and pedestrian
600
gates
feet, that's amazing.
at all of the crosswalks and sidewalks. The pricing that we have does include all landscape repairs, any restoration, any work there, and then all electrical work for card access and gate control to master control at the village.
Anybody have any questions? Commissioner, I'm losing my mind. Commissioner Charles, I'm glad we have names on the desk.
Yeah, me too. Thanks again for the presentation, and I know we heard it a little bit earlier. Do we have a diagram of this layout at some point?
Yeah, I can get Connie access to the drawings, the construction drawings, so you can see them.
That'd be great. And then I just want to clarify for those of us who were at the meeting earlier, was there any thought about using dogs to like knock down kids so that staff could then catch them? Was that ever like proposed?
No.
Okay.
I wasn't at the meeting, but I can tell you that licensing would absolutely not allow that to occur.
Thank you.
I appreciate you stating that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, because.
Unless they're dachshunds. We couldn't do that.
Are you sure? That's, yeah, okay.
Wow. That was like the dumbest question somebody could have asked. Sorry.
All right, anybody else?
Moss, don't lower yours.
I have dachshunds.
Let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
You're very intelligent. Don't do that.
I'm more scared of my cat than I am of my dog, though.
Yeah, them cats, they sleep.
If they had bacon in their pockets, they would run after them.
Puppies.
But they wouldn't get them.
They would just go lick them.
It's not letting me sing it. There we go.
Okay.
Moss?
Yes.
Slap happy over there.
No.
Madam Chair, you have 9 yeas, 1 nay.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item is item 10D, Water Resources Commissioner Resolution assigning American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds for Northwest Oakland Sanitary Drainage District Phase 1. Commissioner Powell, supported by Commissioner Kowal. And I believe we have Brian Coburn and Jim Nash here to talk about this.
If you want to, I can. I'll introduce you. Brian Coburn is our project manager on this for some years now. Brian, go ahead.
All right, thank you. We have a very once-in-a-lifetime opportunity here. Genesee County is going to be constructing a sanitary sewer that extends down to the North County boundary, which provides the ability then to serve Holly, Groveland, and Brandon townships, along with the village of Ortonville. Otherwise, you'd have to build a brand new plant to serve these areas. These areas have issues currently with septic fields. There's a couple lakes that have septics all around them that are failing. We have the Groveland Oaks, which will eventually need a new septic system. Holly Rec area has expressed interest, and then there's several proposed developments along the Dixie Corridor and M15 that would occur if there was sewer available. The request that the project itself has 3 phases. The first phase is acquiring the capacity and sharing in the cost to construct the sewer in Genesee County. And then the other 2 phases would be extending along Dixie Highway and M15 respectively to actually serve the communities. For the first phase, there's no revenue because there won't be any customers. This is the first initial investment into the project in order to have the capacity available. And that's why we're coming to the committee today to request $10 million of ARPA funds be designated towards this project. So then we can begin negotiations with Genesee in good faith with dollars behind it to get the project moving to serve these communities and rid ourselves of several septic systems. And I'll stand by for questions.
Commissioner McGilvery.
Yeah, can you possibly tell me what the cost would be to Oakland County Parks with this project?
Yeah, I was asked a question in an earlier meeting. I haven't been able to research it yet, but I think it's in the neighborhood of about $500,000. And those are connection charges. So the way that customers pay into the system is when they connect. So we're talking about like a $7,000 connection charge per household, and that would help offset that. So they're equivalent to about several households. So it's like $500,000. I think was the number that I calculated.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Commissioner Woodward.
I mean, that's just the hookup cost, and then there obviously will be the sewer fee that you pay into the system to help pay off all the debt, right? So that would be an additional monthly annual cost.
And there would be some investment in the park to get the pipes to the appropriate places.
Yeah. So I think that point we need to work on. I mean, Brian, and we had a lengthy conversation. I won't rehash the entire thing. Is this a project that needs to happen given the unique opportunities, the environmental importance, and the need to the economic corridor that it benefits? Absolutely. To me, the question is also about figuring out how to finance it and finance it equitably. We've got lots of sewer projects. We've got lots of infrastructure projects. This is a pretty big chunk of money. Almost every other community has found, through other means have found a way to finance this. I realize these are federal dollars, but these are also American Rescue dollars that are intended to minimize the impact of COVID so that we can get a strong, robust effort. Is it an eligible expense? Yes, it is. And so through Brian and I think members of this board should be really working on, I would ideally like to see a mix of grant and loan so that those dollars can be recaptured over time. It will be a long time. That would be available for ongoing sewer infrastructure things going forward. But to Brian's point, that we've got to send a signal that, hey, we're in for $10 million some way or another. And then I think we can try to play with the financing to figure out what's the best way to do that without, I guess, I'm going to say, jeopardizing other opportunity that these dollars could otherwise be used for.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Cavell.
Chair, you bring up an interesting point. So as we discussed earlier, right, there are other communities that have failing septic systems that are not included on this, including Southfield. Is there any thought to having the conversation about other parts of Oakland County and not taking away from this fund for those other communities and staying on the timeline that you need, Brian, but between this committee meeting and the full board meeting, talking about an amendment to be able to meet the needs of those other communities that have failed septic systems?
I'm not sure that we can identify the need because we don't know how many septic systems are out there. That would be the difficulty in that. I'm not opposed to the concept. The other issue would be that the local communities would be the ones that would be extending those in their systems and not the county. So it would be more of a grant program where there would be an application process similar to what we did with the local planning grants using the ARPA funds.
Okay, but you're not opposed to starting to think about that and perhaps work on it?
Again, the health department does not have clear records on how many septic systems are available, so it's not clear to us what that need is.
But the ones that have been identified.
You can work with health to identify which ones those are, sure.
Okay, okay. Okay, cool.
Thank you, Commissioner Cavell. Anybody else? Yeah, I will just add that long-term, I really do feel like we need to get a handle on septic and sewer going forward. If it takes 20 or 30 years, but we have the most lakes and the most septic systems in the state of Michigan, and they're related. And so I would like, even if it's just a generalized map of Oakland County and our sewers, and where do we think the areas are, what communities do we think we're going to have issues with going forward? Because, you know, in this, here's one, small communities up on the northern boundary, but we have communities out on the west side where we have a lot of this issue, and we have some of the older communities where we have this as an issue. And so I'd just like a longer-term strategy for septic/sewer management planning going forward, so that what's it going to look like in 2030? What's it going to look like in 2040? Are we going to be to a point where we're protecting all our lakes by not having septic anymore? So I'd like to see a plan going forward, but not as a reason to vote yes or no on this. But that's just my, Brian, you and I know we're engineers, we like long-term plans, so, yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Commissioner Gershenson. I knew it had a G.
Just really quickly, did you say Parks has to come up with $500,000 out of their budget to do this?
I did not hear that.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Is that what he said?
Okay,
For the
so-
And then the ongoing cost that Dave said.
Okay, so I don't want to talk about it right now, but I do want to talk about that. That doesn't seem fair. This is an ARPA program, and yet Parks has to come out of their budget?
Oh.
Am I missing something?
So if I could explain, the way that it works is there's a connection charge for every customer that connects to the system. So Parks would be no different than any other customer that makes a connection. They would be charged based on the number of household equivalents they have. So that number, when I calculated, I can't remember what the household equivalency was like $500,000. So if you build a house, you're going to pay $7,500 to connect into the system.
I understand. This is not something they've chosen. This is something that is being imposed on them by this deal. So I get it, but.
They don't have to connect either. I mean, that's another option.
All right, I just think it's worth discussing at a later date.
All right, yeah, well, and I think between now and next Thursday, but we need to discuss it because we're basically committing to put this money forward. But Brian, this gets to a certain point that, and I think this is something I said at the meeting earlier today, that to me that this needs to be contingent of everyone opting in. If we're going to spend this level of capital, like every customer along this corridor better be opting in here. Otherwise, why are we building this thing? And so I think there needs to be, and I know that you work with an ordinance for the local townships to adopt. I think there at minimum should have some requirement, but this becomes like the pickle. Either I mean, maybe as a county, if we're going this way, we got to figure out a way to make it whole. But it's not just the operation, it is what's the ongoing cost, because they will now be paying sewer fees. And I imagine it's based on some level of flow. And, I mean, you add campers emptying its flow or stuff, and not to mention the individual camps and the bathrooms. This has this is why I kept asking. The fiscal impact question is a real one that between now and next Thursday, we've got to get our heads around.
Okay.
Commissioner Cavell.
Thank you. And you mentioned this earlier, Brian, because Commissioner Charles asked this about special assessment districts and millages to help pay for this. Local communities would do that. I forget if this was mentioned or not, so please remind me. Is there a contingency if places like Ortonville don't vote for a special assessment district and just want to stay on their septic and you still built it?
So the way we're handling this is through the drainage process, the drain code. And so the communities themselves petition to create a project. Okay. And so that petition to do the feasibility study, that's the project. And that's what we've got the petitions from the communities to do. There's no special assessment. It's through the drain code that we assess the communities for their portion based on their use.
Okay, so they're going to have to pay regardless of whether they like it or not, because there's the drain code.
Correct. We've received the petitions from 3 of the 4 communities. We're working on the 4th. So they're in. They've filed, and we're just following what they want us to do under the drain code.
Okay. I just know Bob doesn't like taxes, and he lives in Holly. So wonder how that's going to go.
Okay, anybody else? Let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
We're getting a babysitter now for the vote too.
Oh.
Oh, it's working over here.
I got a better idea. Just take these computers and find a garbage can.
I heard that.
I like them if they work.
I like them.
They'd be good mirrors.
I like them if they work, but
It's faster.
I didn't get a prompt.
If they work.
Commissioner Charles, yours didn't work?
Mine didn't either. Do I need to?
Refresh yours?
Refresh, yeah.
Kind of like how you can see right away how people in public health and services voted.
Right.
So you can see that ordinarily.
Yeah.
Right.
I vote yes.
Okay.
You might have to do it.
Oh, there it goes.
Charles?
Oh, there it is. No.
Mine came up once I refreshed.
Okay.
Okay.
The alternative is we
Okay.
could send out a 1,000-page package.
Madam Chair, you have 10 yeas, 0 nays.
Sanity, okay. Thank you. Motion carries. Next up, item 10E. I was going to wait till the public health and safety recommendations. That's, all right. We will take 5 after this next item, okay?
Thank you.
All right, and this is.
Are you on the?
Childhood education staffing.
Okay, so 20 years ago, I started working on this. That's
I need
how
a
it feels.
motion
Call for the vote.
on item 10E. Okay. Charles, supported by Powell.
All right, thank you. So when the ARPA money came across, I was looking at how we could help get more child care workers and how we could help the child care system. And I participated with a group called the Great Start Collaborative that had all the leading childhood educational experts in the community. And they came up with 2 recommendations. The first was to get more child care workers to help build the pipeline. And the second was to get more money to the child care workers. So we're working on getting them more money through economic development and a resolution we've already passed, and we will be coming back with a continuation of that. But this one is a partnership with United Way on getting more students in the pipeline to work in childcare. So I've been working with Jeff Miles, who I sure hope is still on this call. Jeff, are you? Yay! Thank you, Jeff, for your patience. So I'm going to have Jeff explain the program.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners, for having me, and thank you, Commissioner Gershenson, for your leadership on this. I am Jeff Miles. I'm a senior director at the United Way for Southeastern Michigan. Been over our early childhood work for many years now. We're here to request $450,000 to expand the certified workforce in Oakland County. I think we've all read enough now to understand the importance of early childhood and any economic recovery allows parents to get back to work and starts our children on a great start to school and to life. But in order to do that, we have to have certified staff. We've all heard about the governor's expansion of the 4-year-old preschool program, the Great Start to Readiness program. Head Start has been a long-standing program here in Oakland County as well. But each of those require staff to have what's called the Child Development Associate, and that requires a rigorous training process. And so United Way, in partnership with 3 organizations across the Tri-County region, have been doing the CDA work for the past 5-6 years. We are gold accredited nationally, and we have graduated over 500 people from the program with an 85% success rate. And so our proposal is to have 100 individuals go through that program here in Oakland in partnership with Leaps and Bounds and Oakland Family Services. There's a 12-week cohort. There'll be 4 of them that are, done on a revolving basis, and then self-directed classes that will be held through Oakland Family Services and our network. It is a significant investment in your early childhood sector. It can really set you up for additional grants from the state and feds as those come down. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but ongoing conversations with Oakland ISD, OLSA, and others, the dearth of certified workers remains and is critical for us being able to fill the seats, and especially those subsidized low or no cost seats for parents that need to get their kids placed and get back to work.
Any questions?
Thank you. Sounds like a great program.
Prompt the vote.
Let's prompt the vote, please.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, no.
Chuck is a yes vote.
I am a yes.
I'm a yes.
All right, we're going to take a,
I'm a yes.
Long,
Yes.
Gershenson,
Yes.
Charles,
Here it came now.
Gilray.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 10 yeas, 0 nays.
okay, motion carries. We are going to take a 5-minute-ish
Thank you, Jeff.
break for everybody to move around and do what they need to do. The committee stands at ease.
I'm ready to go.
Until 2.
Down in the basement, there's also Lorna Dunes right here.
You said 5 minutes, Chair?
morning.
Ready? Why is 5 minutes so much slower when you're, you know, you should get 5 times and all 3 times?
Oh, my God. Right.
All these iPads light up.
Look at those lit up. Okay, what is the test?
I'm voting yes because I,
Is it just a test?
Yep, this is just a test.
Oh, it's only a test, I would have voted on it.
But wait 5 minutes, it'll change.
Maybe if you don't touch your
I already voted.
Gary's in charge of our Optimist Club.
This time.
I abstained.
Yep.
I should wait for him to save his so we don't get any type of confusion.
Okay,
There you go, okay.
and then
Cancel vote and
Powell, not to be confused with Kowal.
Yep.
Kowal, Powell,
so now
Powell.
awesome, thank you. Are we ready to?
Wow.
Just give me a minute. No, you're muted right now. We're waiting.
okay.
I would drink coffee, but I need a caffeine. Oh, my God.
I had like 3
Well, I think some of our, Paul was the one
It's
that.
coming good. I'm about to send I sent 1 mailer out.
We're ready. All right, I declare the Board of Commissioners Finance Committee back in session. Ready to go on item number 11A under Public Health and Safety Committee. Sheriff's Office grant application with the U.S. Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Assistance Programs for FY 2022 Bulletproof Vest Partnership Program. Moved by Commissioner McGilvery, supported by Commissioner Kowal. Do we have somebody from the Sheriff's Office to talk to us about this?
Yes, good afternoon.
Hi,
Hi, yeah.
How are you?
Good, welcome.
Long day, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is our annual application for the Bulletproof Vest Partnership. We're asking for a little over $111,000, which would pay for 220 vests. We're on a 5-year replacement plan with our vests, and they cost $505 a piece. We likely won't get this total amount, but that's what we're eligible to apply for. For reference, some years we've gotten $0. Last year we were able to get about $21,000, which purchased 42 vests.
Okay. Commissioner Woodward.
And then when, Gail, so once we, at the 5-year mark, where does the vest go?
We actually destroy those. So we according to the support services disposal procedure, we either have them do, what we've been doing is taking it over to a place on the west side of the state, and they actually incinerate them and destroy the old uniforms, property, anything that we have.
Could we send them to Ukraine?
That we're exploring that option. We were asked by purchasing. We don't have any currently right now because we had already disposed of them, but that was discussed.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Put them in a box and mail them to Ukraine? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. No other comments or questions? Let's prompt the vote.
Why am I an EDI? What's going on here?
That's why you're not getting a vote. Using
I didn't do anything.
Oh, you've been in your own committee?
Oh,
You've been in the wrong committee?
It just came up again.
Oh, okay.
Hi, 5-year-old. That's your vote.
I voted yes.
He votes yes. Help
I
him.
vote yes.
Okay.
I'll get you a new one.
Madam Chair, you have 10 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay. Item number, thank you, Gaia.
All right, thank you guys. Have a good day.
You too. All right, item 11B with the United States Department of Agriculture for the FY 2022 prescription for healthy living. I need a motion. Commissioner Gershenson, supported by Commissioner Cavell. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Leanne Stafford, Director of Health and Human Services.
And I'm Carrie Breiber, Planning and Evaluation Supervisor.
So I brought Carrie along. She actually oversees this program. What we're requesting here is a grant, a little over $400,000 for the produce prescription grant. This is a little bit of a continuation grant. We've brought this a couple times. Working with OU, we brought this to Pontiac, where it's a prescription where people can get produce, and they have to go through an evaluation and kind of like a program where they learn about how to eat and exercise healthy. We also brought a grant that we did it in the south area, so the southern part of the county. Now this grant allows us to expand it to the whole county. So the other 2 times it was very specific to those areas. We will utilize 2 public health educators to do the work here. A very successful grant thus far, so we're really hoping by expanding it we can continue to offer that success. So.
Okay, Commissioner Kowal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Leanne. You say it's a very successful program. How do you define that?
You want to talk to that?
Yeah, so based on some of our previous evaluation, participants who have completed the program were found to have improvements in their self-reported food security, their fruit consumption. They reduced their sugary beverage consumption. They reported that their own perceived health was better, and they reported healthier eating habits. And then depending on, they get a certain amount of food vouchers per month. If they spend most of their vouchers, then they saw a reduction in weight and blood pressure. And then looking at like potential health disparities, Black or African American participants actually had a higher reduction in their blood pressure, so we're able to address health disparities with blood pressure too.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, let's prompt the vote.
Madam Chair, you have 10 yeas, 0 nays.
Excellent, thank you. And we all voted electronically? All right. All right. Next up, we have item 11C, Health and Human Services again. Grant application with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services for the FY 2023 Local Health Department Comprehensive Agreement. The biggie.
Yes, this is our big grant.
I need a motion. Sorry. Commissioner Gershenson, supported by Commissioner Powell.
So this is our large grant with MDHHS. This is most of our mandated programs. So this is our application. They pretty much tell us our funding levels. But again, as an application to them, you will see that this funds 56 special revenue positions. We're actually creating 3, and then 4 vacant positions will be deleted. And generally, those positions are deleted because in a couple of these programs, the state has centralized some of the programming instead of pushing it down to the local health departments. Like some of the HIV programs, the state will be handling themselves now, moving forward.
Okay. Anybody have any comments or questions on this big program? If not, let's prompt the vote.
I'm a yes. Some of my computer.
Yeah, my computer went black. I'm a yes, too.
Nobody cares.
Told you, wait a minute.
Charles?
Oh, it did finally come up.
Oh.
Yeah, you just got to be patient.
Madam Chair, you have 10 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, item passes. Next up, item 11D. Health and Human Services Resolution appropriating American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds for the Healthy Food Access Initiative. I need a motion. Commissioner Charles, supported by Commissioner Cavell. Hello.
Hello. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm here today to speak about the Healthy Food Access Initiative. Basically, what this initiative is, it provides a one-time grant opportunity for Oakland County emergency food providers to fulfill the greater need for food at this time. Basically, this proposal is made of 3 separate parts. There will be a contribution of $350,000 to Lighthouse, which is Oakland County's largest emergency food provider, $150,000 to Oakland Hope, which is Oakland County's largest choice food provider. The third part, Health and Human Services will contract with the Pontiac Community Foundation to provide a grant. There will be an overall grant amount of $350,000 that will be available to smaller emergency food providers where they could apply to get grants to supply food for their nonprofits and those type of things. Pontiac Community Foundation will create an RFP for this process, the application, the scoring rubric, the review team, and applicants can receive up to $50,000. And I am available for any questions.
Okay, I'll open it up to the commission. Anybody have any questions, comments? Seeing none, let's go ahead and prompt the vote. Mike.
Can I just ask, how does word get out to these smaller food pantry? You reach out to them?
Yeah, we're gonna do plan a marketing plan with Pontiac Community Foundation, probably hold some webinars so that they can get more information, or an information call so they can get more information about the grant. So we can work with.
That'll go out to the rest of the county as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
Okay.
Madam Chair, you have 8 yeas and 2 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Excellent. Thank you. Next up, we have item 11E, Health and Human Services Resolution appropriating American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds for a food landscape study. I need a motion. Commissioner Powell, supported by Commissioner Cavell. Okay, once
all set?
again.
All right, thank you. So the food landscape study will provide the county with the data needed to develop a strategic plan to actually address food needs in Oakland County. So what this study will actually do, it will provide a tool where the county could actually address food insecurities. What is the need for food? What are the insecurities? What are the strategies that we need to address this issue? This is a more long-term study. The prior resolution was something that was immediate for people who are in need immediately. This is something that will allow us to plan effectively our food strategy and how to assist residents who are in need in the future.
Okay. Anybody have any? Commissioner Woodward.
So we haven't selected who would do the study?
No, we're gonna go out to bid.
Yeah. No, sir, there'd be a third-party vendor who will actually go out, and they would be the person that manages the strategic plan. And they will also work with the University of Michigan's School of Public Policy and Poverty.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have any questions, comments? Seeing none, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
Madam Chair, you have 9 yeas, 1 nay.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next up, item 11G, appropriating, 11F, sorry. I was doing so well.
Madam Chair, it's helpful when I can know how the vote landed. So since we don't have it up here,
okay,
is it possible to know the?
That was 9 to 1.
9 to 1.
And the dissent was. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Next up, item 11F, Health and Human Services Resolution appropriating American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds for Honor Community Health. Okay, I need a motion. Commissioner Cavell, supported by Commissioner Powell. Okay.
Hi. So this request is a one-time funding request using ARPA funding to implement a community-based residency program for Honor Community Health, and they will be operating this out of the Pontiac General Facility. And so, as you may have heard or maybe didn't know, prior to the pandemic, family physicians, primary care physicians were very hard to find, right? Especially those that were ingrained in community level population, right? So really working in the community locations. So now that are like low-income locations. And now that we've had COVID, we're having physicians that are leaving practices earlier than expected, right? Retiring early just due to burnout. So what Honor is trying to do here, or will be doing, is creating a residency program. They will be looking at adding 6 per year as part of this program, working through their programming. And so what this does is the one-time $1 million grant. Actually, so Honor received a HRSA planning grant to try to develop what the residency program would look at. This $1 million will help them operationalize that, so get it started. And then once they are up and running, they'll be able to request additional funding, right, that will help them sustain this program, along with billing, obviously, for these services as well. So the funding will go to support wages for the residents, costs related to training. So like the physician's oversight, obviously you have to have preceptors and physicians that oversee what they're doing here. And then obviously the medical education and within the clinical setting. So that's what this $1 million will go for.
Okay, I'll open it up to the commission. Seeing no more comments or questions, let's prompt the vote. Getting more medical professionals into the underserved communities is a noble endeavor. Mr. Woodward is a yes.
Oh, okay, yes. Madam Chair, you have 7 yeas, 3 nays.
Okay.
Dissenting, Kowal, Long, and McGillivray.
Okay.
Commissioner Charles was asking.
Right. Did you get that, Commissioner Charles?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay. Next up is item G, 11G. Health and Human Services Resolution appropriating American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds for Corktown Health. Right, Corktown Health. And a motion from Commissioner Cavell, supported by Commissioner Powell. Okay.
Yes, so this request is $2.5 million for a facility called Corktown Health. So currently, a little bit about Corktown Health. They are the first medical home that focuses on the LGBTQ community in Southeast Michigan. They currently have a facility in Detroit. They really focus around primary care, behavioral health services, HIV care and treatment, cancer screening, health insurance navigation, and more. And so what they're looking to do is bring their facility into Hazel Park. And so they are looking, part of this proposal will be used to renovate a 17,000 square foot existing property in Hazel Park that they've already located. And so, and it's the idea is really to increase access to care, which, as you know, is one of our community objectives as part of the OC strategic framework around healthy residents. Again, they're asking for $2.5 million as a one-time grant or one-time infrastructure investment. They actually are bringing $2.5 million to this program, so the total project, full project, is actually $5 million. So they have loans and a partnership and capital that they'll be bringing to try to round out that $5 million. For sustainability, they will be billing and also looking for, insurance reimbursement. They'll also be using grant funding and fundraising moving forward.
Commissioner Powell.
I want to be clear to ask the question. This center will service anyone.
That is
it's
correct.
It's not just for that particular community.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Would they qualify as a Title X licensed facility? Do we know?
Well, they're supposed to be on the call, so I'm going to ask if Corktown is here. Unfortunately, I don't have that answer. So if they're not here, then I can ask. Oh, they are? They are there. Oh, thank you for staying on with us. Is Anthony or Michael available? Mike?
They were here. I did see them. Corktown?
What is a Title 10?
Low-income family planning.
Family planning, yeah.
So they may have already checked out.
So
That's okay.
I can get that
Just
answer
ask the
for you.
question.
Okay,
It's not going to affect
I will
my
connect
vote.
with them and
I
ask.
just would be
Okay.
interested.
Yes.
The reason I ask is because when, Planned Parenthood lost their Title X funding, they were the only Title X provider in the south end of Oakland County, and so that's, I remember that. So, okay. Anybody else? Please prompt the vote. We're getting there.
Madam Chair, you have 7 yeas, 3 nays.
And the 3 nays were?
3 nays, Kowal, Long, and McGilvray.
Okay, same 3. Okay. Excellent, thank you. Next up, we have item 11H, Health and Human Services Resolution appropriating American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds for the Double Up Food Bucks program. Moved by Commissioner Cavell, supported by Commissioner Charles.
So basically, the Double Up Food Bucks program helps people gain access to food. What it does is it actually supplements it. It actually matches SNAP contributions, except it focuses on fresh foods and fresh vegetables from local farmers. This program is part of the Fair Food Network, which is a nonprofit organization that aims to provide healthy foods access nationwide. This proposal will provide greater access to fresh food and fresh vegetables for residents in need by doing 4 things. 1, by subcontracting with the Fair Food Network to recruit 3 additional Double Up Food Bucks sites in Oakland County. Currently, there are 5. Secondly, we will work with 2 existing vendors to expand their operation to include online SNAP payments and online Double Up Food Buck payments purchases. Third, we will upgrade the point of sale systems to accommodate and administer the sales for both of those programs. And 4, it will provide incentive dollars for families who are shopping at Oakland County sites.
Okay. Commissioner Cavell.
Yeah, a lot of these are focusing on communities that are like high need or stricken with poverty or disadvantaged. There is like a literal term in the ARPA stuff, in the ARPA final rule that talks about what makes a community qualified. Can you just refresh us all with what those communities are in Oakland County? Because if I remember right, there's 6 of them.
6 of the Double Up Food Buck communities?
No, just in general in the ARPA final rule, because a lot of this has to do. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're looking at the qualified census tract, it definitely goes by your median or your low economy and other needs. So you're looking at Pontiac, you're looking at Hazel Park, Oak Park, Pontiac, Hazel Park, Oak Park. What are the other 2?
Madison Heights and Royal Oak Township.
Yeah, Royal Oak Township.
And Madison Heights. Yep. Just to make sure that the emphasis on a lot of these are in, when you say high need or disadvantaged people or communities that are whatever, you're talking about Madison Heights, Hazel Park, Royal Oak Township, Oak Park, Pontiac.
Yeah, but actually, these programs will service people in need throughout the county. So,
Understood.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody have any questions? Seeing none, let's prompt the vote.
Charles? Oh, you got it.
It just came up to her, though.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, did you get mine, Pam? Because now I got no.
I got yours.
Okay.
Yeah, I got everything. Okay, Madam Chair, you have 10 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next up is our last item on the regular agenda, item 11HI, Board of Commissioners, resolution appropriating American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds to create the Oakland County Schools Mental Health Grant Program to address students' mental health needs in Oakland County Public Schools. I need a motion. Commissioner Charles, supported by Commissioner Woodward. Okay, is somebody here to talk about this?
I don't know if Commissioner Lubes is here. I can talk about it, though.
Okay. Commissioner Lubes, are you here?
All right,
No?
well, that's
Okay,
fine.
go
It's
ahead,
pretty
Commissioner.
straightforward,
He has
right? Right. So, I think
Fancy that.
everyone, understands the mental health challenges that that our students and schools are facing. There's been lots of conversations about the need to not only invest there, but help create increase access to more social workers, psychologists, other services, training development, et cetera. And so this proposal is designed to work with our local school districts and our public academies to provide a grant program, basically divided in two pieces. Half a grant without match, half a grant with match. So $175,000. There's a criteria, grant application. A committee will be set up to review these. There's only a handful of school districts. $175,000 available for each district. An additional $175,000 available when matched with the local school districts. School districts got a significant number of ARPA dollars. I have had a number of conversations with superintendents, and it varies in what they see as the most strategic and most critical need and long-term need in their individual school districts. Some see the need to additional personnel to have more social workers on hand. Some see the value in training faculty and administrators to help identify students that need more direct emergency or critical mental health interventions. Some are looking to a combination. This gives school districts the flexibility to identify, and then collectively we'll be able to have a sense of how those dollars are being used. So again, it's $175,000 grant that's available to every school district. Along the criteria that's outlined in the resolution, and an additional $175,000 when matched with additional dollars. And we will monitor that. If there's a school district that cannot make the match, then I think, once we've granted the money out, then we can take a look if we need to make any considerations. The thought is that this is a shared priority, and that altogether this would be a $15 million mental health investment in our local schools for our public school students. And I want to commend Commissioner Lubes, who's been working on this for a very long time, and kind of marshaling the staff, the team, and other people along. And this is, I think, a good product that we've worked with the administration. Leverages match, hopefully, lends itself to long-term transformative improvement, and providing the flexibility so individual school districts can meet the individual needs of their students.
Okay. Commissioner Long.
Real quick, Dave, how did we, and you might know, the 10.15, was that the amount, the 175 times all the schools?
Yeah, so the 28 school districts that are part of the Oakland County ISD, obviously some overlap, but those are the Oakland County ISDs. And then there's a 29th district, which, the committee will have to look, but to prorate to all the public school academies. Basically kind of lumped all the public school academies into one school district, roughly about the same size of our smallest school district when you add all the students up. And so we want to make certain that they're eligible if they are making these types of investments to help their students as well.
Okay, well, I love there was a formula.
There was a formula.
Commissioner Kowal.
I'm sorry, I must have missed it, but Mr. Chair, did you say that there was, as long as each school district, but as long as they qualify? No? Okay.
No, all school districts will be eligible. So all school districts get the base 175.
Okay.
And then there's an additional 175 available that, as this is written, requires a match from the local school district. So altogether, a $10 million, this is basically a $15 million mental health school initiative.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Powell.
And I just want to be clear, all schools mean public, charter, not private, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
There's some legal requirements on that.
Yeah, no, I just wanted our
Yeah, the
folks to
public school academy,
understand.
we're gonna have to figure out a formula, because the public school academies, even though each individual charter school is a public school in its own district, we're gonna have to figure out a way to make it kind of like divide like that last one chunk up. And some of it's gonna be based, they'll be invited to apply, and then we'll figure out, the oversight committee will figure out the distribution formula for them, based
Got
on
it.
who applies.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
Thank you, Jesus. We done. Sorry.
That's okay. All right.
That's what my man said. Whew.
Oh, yeah, there's a bunch of public.
Well, I'm out of here today.
There's no.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Something to say during public comment?
It don't matter. They are gonna ask the chair to be excused.
All right.
I'm out of here today.
That concludes the regular agenda. Next up is our second public comment, where people can come and talk to us about anything they'd like for 3 minutes. So is there anyone who wishes to address this committee at this time? Seeing no one, I will close public comment, and I will call this meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Jesus.
Oh, my God.